Welcome to our panel discussion on balancing big data and claim professionals to optimize outcomes. Now more than ever, artificial intelligence, predictive modeling, and big data are transforming how TPAs manage claims for larger firms. But technology is just the start. Operationalizing these advantages requires people with the expertise and empathy, armed with the right tools and processes. I'm your moderator, Sherry Hersey. We're gonna take a look at the disclaimer here. We will answer questions at the end of our discussion this afternoon. There is on Zoom, if you're not familiar, there's a Q&A function. You feel free to click that and ask your questions throughout our presentation, and we will address all the questions together at the end. The slides and a recording of the webinar will be available from your CSS representative and via email after our session. So please join me now in welcoming our industry experts with over 30 years of experience in claims management. Let's start with Kevin Mahoney. Would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Sherry. Kevin Mahoney. I've been working in the industry for about 15 years now. I spent half of that on the pricing side, building predictive models to price business insurance. The last 7 or 8 years, I've been in claim, also running a research and development area focused on transforming the way we handle claims.
Okay, next panelist is Todd Mattiello.
Thanks, Sherry, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Todd Mattiello, I have been with Constitution State Services for over 30 years now. The majority of that time has been in the claim department. My current responsibilities are for an organization we refer to as claim account executives. Many of you, at least on the broker side, have probably worked with our CAEs, as we refer to them, as they are the liaison between our larger customers and our brokers, and ensuring that they take advantage of all the capabilities that claim has to offer. Looking forward to spending time with you this afternoon.
Thank you. And next is Rich Ives.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I have over 20 years experience in the industry. My day-to-day role is responsible for workers' compensation claim for the whole of our organization. And then I have some business practice responsibilities across business insurance claim.
Thank you to our illustrious panelists. As our title suggests, balancing big data and claim professionals to optimize outcomes, the people involved are most critical to the claim outcome. So this is a question for Todd. When it comes to choosing and evaluating a TPA, what elements should a company look for in a team of claim professionals?
Thanks, Shay. I love this question. Anybody who's seen me out in marketplace talking to customers, prospects, or brokers would pick up on the fact that I start and I finish with talking about the talent that we have. To me, without competent, effective, experienced claim and medical professionals, it doesn't matter what else that you bring to the table. It's a non-starter, right? And for us, it's really, really important that we not only attract the right talent, but that we continue to invest in their development throughout their career, right? It's not enough to just do it as newbies coming on board. But as the environment changes and those changes are thrown at our claim and medical professionals, developing and training them for that, developing and training them as complexity in the types of claims that they manage over the years becomes more difficult. So investing in their careers and their development over time is hugely important. It's one of the reasons I believe the investment in their development that we boast a really strong retention of our talent. In fact, it's in the single digits, which I'm not sure many can compete with. And because of that longevity of our claim and medical professional, it lends itself to really getting to understand our customers and what their desires are, and our ability to build our relationships with those customers, which to me is critically important, on top of the other investments that we will spend time and energy talking to you about today. So in summary, absent the foundation of competent claim and medical professionals, you're really not starting in the right place. So it's really, really important to have.
So the foundation or starting point is claim professionals with talented claim professionals and experienced claim professionals. The next leg of our three-legged stool in achieving this balance between big data and claim professionals is our technology portion. So data and analytics, we all know, have transformed the way we manage insurance claims. So this is a question for Kevin. How are some TPAs using predictive modeling today?
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. I definitely agree with Todd. The claim professionals are, really a critical part of making sure, claims are handled appropriately. They're using our analytics appropriately in order to triage claims and handle claims more effectively. So I couldn't agree more with that. So what I wanted to do real quick was actually start with the data before we get into the predictive modeling. So I'll just give you an example from CSS. We collect about somewhere around 1,500 elements on each of our more than 30 million claimants that we've had over the past 10 plus years. So when you think about that, that's about 45 billion structured data points that we have on our claimants, right? When you think about the TPA space, I think those two TPAs who are going to be most successful are the ones who have the market share and the data to be able to really appropriately use analytics to triage and handle claims. We have over 1.5 billion claim notes. So not just the structured data that I talked about before, but unstructured data we can also tap into for building our predictive models. We have more than 60 million medical bills. So this is really like, these are the ingredients that you need in order to build effective predictive models. That's just our internal data. So now if we turn to third-party data sources, we also need to leverage that information to get a complete view of the claim. So one of the areas that I think is really key in the TPA space is looking at prior claim history for whether it's claimants or injured workers, just understanding, if there are any kind of patterns of behavior that we should be aware of or be concerned about. Something new in the space that has come up over the past year or so is the idea of automated social listening. So just going out and being able to capture data that's out there, publicly available on the web, to understand, what facts exist that might either confirm the elements of the claim or contradict the elements of the claim. So I think you're starting to see more TPAs work with social listening vendors to be able to pull all that information in, to be able to quickly assess, is this a claim that's valid or is this a claim that we have some concerns about? And then certainly, you're seeing with all the social inflation going on these days, more and more attorney activity. I think folks should be looking for TPAs who can understand connections between attorneys, providers, medical providers, claimants, just to understand, get a full picture of claims. So now as we get into predictive modeling, I think the three areas that you see people focused on the most are fraud detection. So that's using information, from our structured, from our unstructured data, third-party data sources like the social listening that I talked about, to understand claimants as well as medical providers on a claim, because we do see quite a bit of medical provider fraud as well. Litigation propensity is another hot area where you're trying to understand which claimants are most likely to hire attorneys. We know attorneys are likely to drive up the medical costs on a claim. We've seen that over time. We want to make sure that we pay what we owe on a claim, but not more than we owe, not less than we owe. And so understanding when attorneys might get involved, I think helps us get a leg up on you know, how we can handle the claim more effectively and potentially communicate with the claimant in a way that you know, I think leads to the best outcome for them and for their employers. Lastly, claim triage is really important as well. So how do we handle claims in the most effective way? How do we get the right resources on claims? So for example, getting nurses on certain claims where we think that'll be most effective. So you're starting to see a lot of predictive modeling in really those three areas.
So there's a lot packed in there, Kevin. Again, a reminder, if anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A function to submit your questions. You can send technical questions in for Kevin to answer. You mentioned 45 billion structured data points and then fraud detection models and litigation propensity models. So is there a danger of too much data or AI or even on the other hand, too much human contact, overemphasis on the people side versus the technology side? So maybe let's go to Rich now. Rich, could you share some examples of how that balance between the technology and the claim professionals come together to strike the right balance?
Yeah, absolutely, Sherry, we'd love to, because we believe that this is a very important question that needs to be considered in this light of transformational time. And so, you know, the reason why we say that is that if you have too much reliance on just the talent aspect, just the human aspect of the process of claim handling and medical management, then what you miss is the ability to augment the understanding of that individual, that claim professional, to actually expand upon their knowledge and their expertise. So, you know, if you lean too much on the side of just the human interaction and the human process, then it's not as efficient, and it mitigates some of the effectiveness on your ability to create better outcomes. Now, on the opposite side, if you have too much leaning the way of digital technology and predictive modeling capabilities, and you miss the very important nuance of the human skill, then you lack the ability to change the outcome or the ability to tailor that process to actually make it very meaningful to both the overall outcome as well as to, you know, the injured employee or the injured customer or that, for that matter, a third-party claimant that we think has a big impact. So let's make that practical just for a second, okay? You know, you take what Kevin's talking about and the ability to use our historical scale of data and understanding over a long period of time. A claim professional is even somebody who's been in the business for 30, 40 years. They're only going to be able to bring their thoughts, their insights based on that moment in time and for that claim. And they can only be involved in one claim at a time. So the ability to bring some of those insights of what we have seen historically to otherwise predict where a claim might be going or to direct a path or provide guidance to change an outcome is where all of the magic happens. So we think, you know, that the real folks, carriers, TPAs, that'll be real successful in this space are those who can have that excellent balance of both technology and human skill and capability. We see that play out really well in our area of early severity predictor model. And that's just one predictive model as Kevin was mentioning. But if you think about what that does, that basically says, you know, instances of chronic pain where an injured employee might decompensate into chronic pain many months after an injury. And by the way, at the moment they are diagnosed with that, it's really hard to change the outcome at that moment in time. And they become suspect to things like opioid abuse and dependency, for example. You know, we've developed a capability that gives us the opportunity within the first few weeks after an injury to identify for a claim professional and a medical professional the likelihood of those injured employees that would decompensate into chronic pain. Now, to be able to predict the future provides tremendous value, but to be able to intervene and course correct or change that future is extremely valuable. So in this instance, you know, our folks would get a flag. You know, we would then dedicate more resources. We would prioritize those claims a little more. We would, work with medical providers to develop a personalized care path for that individual. We would engage with those injured employees a little differently, along with involving their employers to produce some, what we think are, just terrific industry leading outcomes. And so it provides for us just a practical good use case of how the two have to come together in order to get to your ultimate objective.
Thank you, Rich, for that example of how the model, the early severity predictor model, comes together to enable our claim professionals and achieve that balance. And so part of a TPA, the value of a TPA, is the ability to customize and adapt to the needs of the employer, the customer. Todd, could you talk a little bit about the pitfalls of a one-size-fits-all approach in this space?
Oh, happy to. And I love this dialogue. I love the whole art and science that we're getting into. This last piece speaks to customer insights. So in working with a new prospect, an existing customer, it's really, really important because we all bring a full suite of products and capabilities, to bear. But unless you're really, truly sitting down and listening, to that customer in terms of what's important to them, how they manage their risks today, what their goals and objectives are for today and in the future, it's really difficult to just throw everything at them. It's really understand what those needs are and then provide solutions. How can we complement their existing risk management program with some of the resources and capabilities that we bring to bear? Because you don't need the full suite, perhaps. Sometimes you need components thereof, or sometimes you want to, bring what you have together with what we can complement that with to make sure we come up with a robust program that includes our resources and the capabilities that both Kevin and Rich just hit. So listen, understand, and then offer up solutions. And that's not just a one-time event. Having a customer over the longer term allows us to learn together as to what additional things we can bring to bear that may not have made sense at the beginning, but certainly make sense as we grow together. It's really, really important that a TPA be viewed as an extension of that customer's risk management program. So it's part customization. To me, it's more tailoring the resources and capabilities that we have to the goals and objectives of that customer.
Thank you, Todd. So all three are needed to achieve this balance. It's not just about the models and the data and the technology. It's not just about the talent that the TPA offers. It's all of that combined with the insights that the employer or customer brings to the table. In this environment of COVID-19, how has this environment changed the way TPAs manage claims? Where do you and any of our panelists believe the industry is going next?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. We're proud of this question first and foremost. So practically speaking, in the COVID world, the one that it comes to mind the most is our ability to scale up the ability to do our work from any location. So the quarantine orders across the country in various different phases created a working environment that we were able to adapt to very, very quickly. I think for the most part, a good portion of the industry was. We don't think everyone was able to keep things streamlined as and operationalize those environments as quickly as we were. And part of that is because of the investments we made in technology and in mobile capabilities and digital tools and video capabilities, over the last, many years. So, the ability to scale up 100% work from home operation to mitigate any impact for our customers was something that we feel like we pulled off, extremely well. Second, the technical ability to stay on top of really a moving environment during this period of time. So when you think about, COVID risks and specifically COVID-19 claims directly, and I'll speak about it from the workers' compensation standpoint, the ability to utilize your technical expertise to identify which of those injuries or illnesses actually did arise out of or in the course of scope of work has been very key. So our ability to stay on top of the regulatory changes, case law changes, to scale up an operation, to bring a level of oversight and insight into those claims, to make sure that we are handling them appropriately for our customers, and to provide our customers expertise and knowledge during this period of time is something that we've been able to do really well. The third piece, though, it really involves around the ability to further produce better outcomes leveraging our digital capabilities. And you see an example of that within our digital portal. So we've got over 60, close to 70,000 people who have used our mobile capabilities over this period of time, registering about over almost 2 million sessions. The ability to launch ePay, the ability to be compliant with the changes in telemedicine use. And that one might say that's easy, but the ability to then make sure that we are appropriately repricing those treatments and making sure that we're finding in any instances of fraud or abuse that might happen during this period of time are also things that we launched very, very quickly. The ability to be able to push out documents and forms, e-signature, we think has just been a terrific example of the way that we've used the challenge to drive innovation and pull a lot of our capabilities together at one time to really help to mitigate the impact of this for all involved and to manage in a very dynamic environment.
So that's another way that the investment in technology, or TPA's investment in technology, is very important. Thank you to this, the end of our formal questions in our panel discussion. We have some time to take questions from our audience. So please use the Q&A icon, the feature of Zoom, to submit your questions, and our panel will be glad to answer them.
Sure, I think you promised a machine learning question earlier. Is that true?
Machine learning, video analytics,
artificial intelligence, whatever.
Technology we can talk about.
I'll take it, Kevin.
Yeah.
For all the techie geeks out there. Okay, here's our first question. As more data and tools become available to claim professionals, how has the training changed for claim professionals to maximize the use of these innovations?
Yeah, Rich, maybe you start with that one, and then I can add. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of it is, let me use the example of virtual visit. Maybe that would be a good one, right? So, and that was the ability to leverage a virtual visit with our nurse case managers to interact with an injured employee. So it's a work comp example, but we've got examples across auto, across property of using those video tools to evaluate damage or to connect with an injured person. And in that example, we can't, when we roll out those things, the best practices, if you will, or the use cases for them, it's not like we have experience with utilizing those to integrate it into the fabric of the way we handle those claims over the past 2-3 years. So, we get that out into the hands of our individuals. We leverage, virtual models. We showcase how you need to integrate this into your workflow. But then what's really impactful is we leverage the success stories of our claim professionals and our nurses across the organization to say, how have you found the best use of this tool, right? So, one great example, we rolled out in our digital portal the ability for an injured employee to tell us how they feel their recovery is going. And the way they would respond, rather than answering a survey, is simply by the emojis that you would normally see, right? Happy face, frowning face. And we had one example that happened just a couple of weeks ago where an injured employee, clicked on the one that says, "I'm not doing so well." Now you think about long-term, the ability to know that and how you would wrap that into some of your predictive modeling capabilities, your prioritization, your flagging tools, and et cetera, right? But this brought that claim to the forefront, that injured employee to the forefront for this nurse. The nurse reached out and said, "Hey, let's do a video chat. Okay, there's two capabilities coming together. And the reason why they would do that is to emotionally connect with that person, as well as this individual, range of motion was a problem. You could actually see it at the same point in time, and they leveraged the capability that they had to prioritize the follow-up medical visit. All that happened really within 6 hours of when the person said, I don't feel like I'm doing very well. Now, you compare that with, you know, an attorney solicitation or falling into the hands of, you know, a provider who might not be as helpful or whatever that might be, and you can see how the impact can really play out for us over time with just trying to bring those things and leverage those success stories to train our folks on how to integrate it.
I'll only add one thing, maybe two things to that. You know, Rich and his peers across the product areas of GL, property, and auto, as these new tools are being developed by Kevin's area, they are in sync working with our Claim University talent to bring the training and needed development to the field. And the example I was going to use is there was no better example of our ability to adapt and train our claim and medical professionals in new tools and capabilities than the past 3 months. As Rich had mentioned, we had to accelerate things that were on our plan, but absent a strong foundation of leaders in the field and a claim university to back that up and competent individuals, I don't think we would have been nearly as successful. And I think it was, in all respects, very successful.
And just to get back to what I think Rich and Todd talked about earlier, right? There's an art piece to this and a science piece to this. And the science piece, you know, is building the predictive models, right? That's my group that handles that. But we don't directly touch claims, right? So even though we're building a model and we're making predictions, that's only useful insofar as we get the claim professionals to take the right action, right? And so that's why training is so important. That's why we work with folks in Rich's area and Todd's area to make sure that the folks who are handling those frontline claims understand the model, understand what they're being told, and can take advantage of the information provided.
Thank you. We have a few more questions here. The next one is about models. So I think it was Rich that mentioned the early severity predictor model earlier. Are there other tools or models on the horizon at CSS or across the industry that you're each most excited about?
Yeah, I can take that, Rich, unless you wanted to.
No, you go and then I'll add.
Sure. And, you know, it certainly varies by line of business. You know, I know we talk a lot about workers' compensation, but certainly across all lines, I think you're starting to see more what I would call artificial intelligence, like actual artificial intelligence in the field, right? So better use of computer imagery is key, better use of text data and turning text data into predictions. So think of all the data that we might have in our unstructured claim notes. You know, I think you're seeing that proliferate across the fraud space, right? Whether it's claimant fraud or whether it's provider fraud, understanding networks. You know, that's a big part of, I think, where you'll see the industry going, understanding connections between providers, attorneys, claimants or injured workers. You know, on the triage side, being able to predict which claims are going to be outliers, you know, which is a difficult thing, but you don't have to be perfect at it, right? So if I can tell you, you know, with 40 or 50% accuracy, hey, this claim looks a little bit funny. 1 out of every 2 claims, if I can get that right, you know, that's a huge win. To be able to pull those claims out, give them a little extra attention, and hopefully be able to stop a claim that might get you know, kind of off the path. So I think those are some of the key areas you'll be seeing in the future. And you know, honestly, we're always working on ways to improve our claim handling process with analytics. You know, we probably got 5 or 6 different predictive models going on right now to do just that.
Yeah, the only thing that I probably could add to Kevin's piece is that, you know, at a high level, when you think about the use of AI, automation, predictive modeling, there's the ability to automate a process, and we think about that as in areas where our customers are looking more for digital and technology automation tools. There's obviously a play for that happens across the high frequency, low severity side of the business. But then it's the ability to take some of those same capabilities that you would need to develop on the low severity side to then help bring insight earlier into the process for those claims that are a little bit larger in nature. And so, and this is one area where we think that, we by no means roll out something and we say, okay, we're done. Through machine learning, through our ability to go back and look at where did we use our judgment rather than, just act on the insight from the model. Where were we right? Where were we wrong? How do we further strengthen the accuracy along with additional variabilities? We think it's an area where it's one that just helps us keep going, find additional use cases that'll keep us at the front leading edge.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question about OSHA logs. So does CSS submit OSHA logs directly to OSHA? If not, do you use an outside vendor?
I'll tackle that one, and this one probably deserves a follow-up as well. We do offer a tool through our RMIS product today that allows for the reporting, for the customer to do the necessary reporting. So it's not a service we directly provide, but do work with a vendor through our RMIS product to enable customers to do so. Again, if that hasn't fully satisfied that answer, I'd be happy to take that up offline, Sherry.
Okay, thank you. We have another question about advanced social listening models. When this advanced social listening model finds information about a claimant, what does the adjuster see and how might they act upon that?
Sure, I can talk about that one a little bit. So let me give you some examples first of what kind of information that we get back. So in the case of, let's say confirming an injury to a worker, right? It's amazing how many people will post a photo or post something on their Facebook page to say, hey, you know what, I had an accident at work, or I was in a car accident, and here's a picture of my injured leg or broken arm, that sort of thing, right? That's the kind of information that confirms, the injuries that we might see. Now, on the other side of it, it's amazing to me, and I'm sure to some of the folks out there, it's amazing how many people will post, even though they're out of work, they'll post information about a gym workout that they just did, or a 5K race that they just ran, or we'll see information, on a running site where somebody placed highly in a race, even though they're out of work, right? We see people who are traveling halfway around the world, and yet they're supposedly out on a back injury. So finding all this information is a bit of a challenge, right? I think if you went back a year or two, you'd say most people, it was really up to the claim professional to be doing some kind of Google search to see if they could find anything. Now there are vendors out there that are starting to do this on a more automated basis, right? And I think you see that a lot in the carrier space. I would say it's pretty commonplace in the carrier space. I think it is very uncommon in the TPA space right now. But by using these vendors, what you can do is you can send a list of injured workers or claimants, on a let's say on a nightly basis. They have a process that scans for all related information to that particular injury, and then they'll send reports back saying, hey, on this subset of what you sent us, here's relevant information we found. So the nice part about using a vendor is you don't get everything, right? You just get the information that's relevant to an injury. So they summarize that in a quick report with some links. It's pretty cheap, efficient process. So it's not like you're paying hundreds of dollars to get this information. And what happens is then that information is fed directly to the claim professional, through in our case, through our electronic file cabinet, so that they are aware when that report lands that information is available to them, and then they can go in and they can look at it and take action. In the case of where it confirms an injury, maybe they're able to settle the claim a little bit faster. In the case of where there's a dispute, maybe the next step is to refer that claim to an SIU organization for more investigation.
Yeah, one practical way that we're seeing the value of this one is, and I'll bring it in the light of the current day with COVID claims, right? So the ability to understand if the person's employment actually placed them in a greater degree of risk, and let's place it in a state where there's a presumption law, and let's place it in a state where it's a rebuttable presumption law. The ability for, us to use this type of an aggregator social monitoring tool to be able to look at and say, maybe the person doesn't work in healthcare, maybe they're not a frontline employee, but maybe they're, the grocery store worker or the essential worker, but they were also at a wedding party 7 days prior to when they had the symptoms. It then would raise a whole host of additional questions that we could dive into, right? That's just one practical example. And it's an ability that we were able to scale up very quickly.
I want to add one other thing, not to overload this one, but it's an area I think that's newer to us and exciting in the use of social listening, and that's in jury selection, right? And getting insights on how those individuals, despite the answers they may give in the process, how they may lean and think would lend itself to whether or not, we think they're going to be a good juror or not. Thanks, Sherry.
That's a perfect example to end our session today because it talks about a technology, advanced social listening, and a model, along with how different claim professionals need to be skilled to be able to use that model and apply it at the right time to optimize outcomes for our customers. So thank the panelists. Thank you also for the audience for joining us today. If you would like to learn more about Constitution State Services, please visit our website. And also please reach out to contact your Constitution State Services representatives to learn more.